All right, so my name is Kharah Ross. I'm an assistant professor in psychology at Athabasca University, and I'm also part of the Alberta Pregnancy Outcome and Nutrition Study management team. So as some background, what is APrON? APrON is a very large pregnancy cohort that was launched back in 2009. Pregnant women were recruited from the Calgary and Edmonton regions, along with their partners and their children post-birth. And they have been followed up since then almost continuously. And this has evolved into a very interdisciplinary study that covers pretty much anything you can think of, from nutrition to inflammatory markers, maternal mood, child development, outcomes. Very large study, and it has been very productive over the last 10 plus years or so, with major contributions being made to academics and research, but also to stakeholders, knowledge translation, and policy. But at this point, having been active for about 10 years, APrON finds itself at this transition period. And we wanted to have an opportunity to understand what we have accomplished and what direction we're going in, but also understand what we need to do to keep this cohort going for another 10 years and potentially transition into an intergenerational cohort. So that's why we applied for funds for this Celebrating 10 Years meeting. We were originally scheduled for March 2020, and then of course the pandemic hit like 2 weeks before our keynote speakers were supposed to fly out. So we ended up transitioning everything online, and we held our virtual meeting in October 2020 instead. We had a good number of attendees, 336 attendees, which included our APrON stakeholders, team members, and regular attendees from around the world. And this was a two-day meeting. So the first day we talked about accomplishments and contributions. We had PIs from across APrON explain their research program. And we also got comment from the APrON families about what they enjoyed about participating and what they wanted us to do next. And we also had a number of keynote speakers that we brought in from other major cohorts from around the world, including LSPAC in Britain and ATP Gen 3 in Australia, to talk about the challenges that they had with these kind of cohorts and the strategies that they had used to maintain the cohort and also transition into an intergenerational cohort as well. Day two was more of a World Cafe workshop kind of a thing, where we took what we had learned from the day before and used it to start planning our future directions, with again a focus on this transition to an intergenerational cohort and discussion about the sorts of things we would need to do that, and money, recruiting new researchers, and of course sustainable infrastructure to keep connected with the participants and keep this cohort going. So in terms of next steps, with input from our stakeholders and from our participants, we identified a couple of research directions that seemed to be promising that people wanted us to move into. So we have grants that are going in, looking at epigenetic and genetic information, machine learning, and adolescent mental health, especially as our APrON children are around 12 years old and this starts to become something that we should be focusing on for that age group. We've also, we're working on developing partnerships with these other cohorts that we had come in and do stakeholders, so we can combine our resources and move ahead that way. And then in terms of recruiting the next generation of researchers, we're also working on applications for a training platform that would help us recruit and train the people that are going to be needed to get APrON to be an intergenerational cohort. So that's a very quick, high overview description of what we did, but big thank you to all of the funding agencies provided support for this meeting, and of course our wonderful team of research assistants to put this together. And I also have my contact information at the bottom of the page if you have any questions.